17. Black actors who tragically passed away in 2025. Heartbreaking losses. What if I told you that 2025 has already stolen some of the brightest lights in black cinema and television? From legends who broke barriers on stage and screen to rising stars whose futures were cruelly cut short this year, has been marked by loss after loss, each one leaving fans heartbroken and history forever changed. Their stories are powerful, their struggles unforgettable, and their legacies priceless. Stay with us as we honor these icons, celebrate their lives, and confront the tragedies behind the fame. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Legends of Black Excellence. Dexter Scott King. Dexter Scott King was born on January 30th, 1961, the youngest son of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and Coretta Scott King. From the very beginning, his life was inseparably tied to history. Unlike most children, Dexter grew up in the public eye, overshadowed by a father celebrated worldwide as the voice of civil rights. But his childhood was marked by unimaginable tragedy. At only 7 years old, he lost his father to an assassin's bullet in 1968. Just 6 years later, his grandmother, Alberta Williams King, was murdered while playing the organ in church. These back-to-back losses created scars that would shape Dexter's entire life, leaving him in a perpetual struggle to define his own path while carrying the weight of the King family name. In adulthood, Dexter took on the daunting role of preserving his father's legacy. By 1989, he became president of the King Center for Nonviolent Social Change in Atlanta, an institution dedicated to promoting civil rights and educating future generations about nonviolent activism. His mission was noble, but it came with challenges. Some praised him for protecting Dr. King's intellectual property and ensuring the family maintained control of his image and speeches. Others accused him of commercializing the movement, placing him under intense public scrutiny. For Dexter, it was a constant balancing act, defending his father's dream while struggling with critics who questioned his every decision. Yet Dexter's commitment was undeniable. He even lent his voice to his father's animated likeness in the 1999 educational film Our Friend Martin, a deeply symbolic moment that showed how much he intertwined his identity with his father's enduring message. Still behind the public image was a man who yearned for peace and privacy. He lived much of his later life away from the spotlight, preferring quiet dignity over public spectacle. But life dealt him another cruel blow. In his 50s, Dexter was diagnosed with prostate cancer, a disease that he fought courageously for several years. Despite the treatments and the immense physical toll, he continued to work for justice and equality, never allowing illness to define his final chapter. On January 22, 2024, at only 62 years old, Dexter Scott King passed away in Malibu, California. His death reverberated across the world, not only because of his family name, but also because of the quiet dedication he showed throughout his life. His story is both inspiring and heartbreaking. He was the boy who lost his father to violence, the man who carried forward a dream, and the activist who battled both cancer and criticism with resilience. Dexter may not have been as famous as his father, but his contributions to preserving the civil rights legacy were immeasurable. Though his life ended too soon, Dexter's legacy endures as a reminder of the heavy price borne by those tied to greatness. His journey was filled with grief, resilience, and sacrifice, but also with a relentless commitment to ensuring that the dream of equality lived on. Hinton Battle. Hinton Battle was born on November 29, 1956 in Germany, where his father served in the U.S. military. From a young age, Battle was drawn to music, movement, and performance, a gift that quickly set him apart from his peers. When his family moved to the United States, he pursued this passion with unwavering discipline. His early training led him to the prestigious School of American Ballet, where his talent for dance would soon catch the world's attention. By his late teens, he was already working on Broadway, and by his 20s, he was transforming the stage with performances that critics hailed as groundbreaking. Battle's career soared in 1975 when he made his Broadway debut in The Wiz, playing the Scarecrow in the iconic retelling of The Wizard of Oz. This was just the beginning of a remarkable journey that would span decades. His brilliance as a triple-threat actor, singer, and dancer made him one of the most versatile performers of his generation. Audiences marveled at his grace, power, and ability to bring characters to life with both vulnerability and charisma. His roles in productions like Sophisticated Ladies and Dreamgirls cemented his reputation. But it was his record of winning 3 Tony Awards for Sophisticated Ladies, The Tap Dance Kid, and Miss Saigon that placed him in the pantheon of Broadway legends. Beyond Broadway, Battle expanded his artistry into television and film. He appeared in Buffy the Vampire Slayer as a singing demon in the cult favorite musical episode Once More, with feeling leaving fans with one of the show's most memorable moments. He also performed in Dreamgirls and choreographed numerous productions influencing both mainstream theater and popular culture. For those who followed his career, it was clear that Hinton Battle wasn't just a performer, he was a force of nature. Yet, as with many great artists, there was a hidden cost. The demands of Broadway are relentless, grueling rehearsals, the physical toll of nightly performances, and the constant expectation to remain perfect. Battle carried these pressures for decades, pushing his body and spirit to their limits. While the applause was thunderous, few outside the theater world understood the weight of those sacrifices. On January 30th, 2024, news of Hinton Battle's death at just 67 years old shocked the theater community. The cause was never publicly disclosed, though close friends suggested he had been quietly struggling with health challenges. His passing left Broadway and Hollywood in mourning, silencing a voice and a presence that had inspired generations of performers. Do you believe the relentless pursuit of perfection in the arts often shortens the lives of great performers like Hinton Battle? Hinton Battle's story is one of triumph and tragedy. He broke barriers, dazzled audiences, and left behind a body of work that will continue to inspire. But his passing also reminds us that the spotlight, while bright, can come with shadows too heavy to carry. Even so, his legacy endures in every stage he graced, every note he sang, and every dancer who follows the path he helped carve. Chance Perdomo. Chance Perdomo was born on October 19, 1996 in Los Angeles, California, but grew up in Southampton, England. With a British mother and Guatemalan father, he carried a unique blend of cultures that shaped both his identity and his artistry. From an early age, Chance dreamed of becoming an actor. He was accepted to the prestigious National Youth Theatre in London, and though he was rejected by drama schools, he refused to give up. Instead, he poured himself into auditions, workshops, and independent projects, each step bringing him closer to the breakthrough that would make him one of the most promising young black actors of his generation. That breakthrough came when Netflix cast him as Ambrose Spellman in Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, 2018 to 2020. As Sabrina's witty pansexual cousin, Chance captivated audiences with his charm, intelligence, and magnetic presence. Critics praised his ability to balance humor with emotional depth, making Ambrose a fan favorite. His performance not only gave visibility to underrepresented identities, but also showed the range of his talent. In 2019, his work earned him a BAFTA nomination for Best Actor in a Leading Role TV, proof that he was more than just a breakout star, he was destined for greatness. From there, Chance's career expanded rapidly. He joined the cast of After We Fell 2021 and After Ever Happy 2022, winning over international audiences in the globally successful romantic drama franchise. His growing profile led him to a role in the highly anticipated Prime Video series Gen V, a spin-off of The Boys. As Andre Anderson, a young superhero grappling with personal struggles and the weight of immense power, Chance again showed his remarkable ability to breathe life into complex characters. Industry insiders began calling him one of the brightest rising stars of the decade. But just as his career seemed unstoppable, tragedy struck. On March 30th, 2024, Chance Perdomo died in a motorcycle accident in Los Angeles. He was only 27 years old. The news devastated fans and colleagues alike. Cast members from Gen V and Chilling Adventures of Sabrina shared heartfelt tributes describing him as kind, generous, and deeply passionate about his craft. His untimely death not only robbed Hollywood of a gifted actor, but also left audiences mourning the promise of all he had yet to create. Chance Perdomo's story is both inspiring and heartbreaking. He embodied resilience, proving that rejection could never crush true talent. He embodied diversity, giving representation to voices often silenced on screen. And he embodied potential, the kind that leaves us imagining the extraordinary future he might have had. Though his life was cut short, his performances continue to resonate, reminding us that even a brief spark can light up the world. Chance Perdomo will forever be remembered as a rising star who burned bright, even if only for a short time. Carl Weathers. Carl Weathers was born on January 14, 1948, in New Orleans, Louisiana, a city steeped in culture, rhythm, and resilience. From a young age, he displayed natural athleticism, excelling in football, boxing, and track. That athletic drive carried him to San Diego State University, where he played as a linebacker before signing with the Oakland Raiders in the NFL and later with the BC Lions in the Canadian Football League. But fate had other plans. Injuries cut short his career on the field, forcing him to reckon with the painful reality that the dream he had chased since childhood was slipping away. For most, that would have been the end of the story. For Carl Weathers, it was only the beginning. Turning toward acting, he discovered a new arena in which to channel his competitive spirit. After a series of small roles, his breakthrough came in 1976 when he was cast as Apollo Creed in Rocky. With his imposing physique, dazzling charisma, and fiery intensity, he became the perfect foil to Sylvester Stallone's underdog boxer. Over 4 films, Creed evolved from adversary to friend, leaving audiences inspired by his confidence, elegance, and strength. For many, Carl Weathers was Apollo Creed, an embodiment of discipline, pride, and ambition. His career didn't end in the boxing ring. In 1987, he starred alongside Arnold Schwarzenegger in the sci-fi classic Predator, proving he could hold his own among Hollywood's biggest action stars. He later took roles in Action Jackson 1988, Happy Gilmore 1996, and even voice work in video games, showing off his versatility. In 2019, Weathers gained a new generation of fans when he played Greef Karga in The Mandalorian, a role that reminded audiences of his commanding presence and natural gravitas. Yet behind the tough exterior, Carl's life had its challenges. The transition from football to acting was filled with financial struggles and self-doubt. He spoke openly about the difficulties of being a black actor in the 1970s and 1980s when roles were scarce and stereotypes abundant. Despite those obstacles, he carved a path not just for himself, but for countless actors who came after him. On February 1, 2024, Carl Weathers passed away at the age of 76 from atherosclerotic cardiovascular disease. The news shocked fans worldwide, as many had just seen him on screen in The Mandalorian. Tributes poured in from across the entertainment industry, honoring him not only as an actor, but also as a mentor, father, and symbol of resilience. Carl Weathers' legacy is one of reinvention. He transformed personal setbacks into triumphs, turning an injury into an opportunity that would redefine his life. From the gridiron to Hollywood, he showed the world that greatness is not limited to one arena. His passing left a void in cinema, but his story of determination, strength, and reinvention will continue to inspire generations. Henry Fambro. Henry Lee Fambro was born on May 10, 1938 in Detroit, Michigan, a city that would soon become the beating heart of soul music. Growing up in the shadows of Motown's rise, Henry found his voice early singing in church choirs and small local groups. In 1954, he co-founded a vocal quintet that would later be known to the world as the Spinners. For more than 6 decades, he remained the group's emotional anchor, the one constant presence through every high and low. With his rich baritone and warm stage presence, Henry helped craft timeless hits like I'll Be Around, 1972, Could It Be I'm Falling in Love, 1973, and Rubber Band Man, 1976. These weren't just songs, they were cultural milestones that defined love and heartache for an entire generation. Under the production of Tom Bell, the Spinners became international stars, earning 6 Grammy nominations and a permanent place in the canon of American R&B. Henry's voice carried both velvet smoothness and quiet strength, making him the glue that bound the group together through decades of lineup changes. But his journey was not free of challenges. Like many black musicians of the 1960s and 1970s, the Spinners faced the inequities of the music industry: unfair contracts, lack of royalties, and the constant battle for recognition in a world that too often overlooked their contributions. Henry, humble and soft-spoken, rarely sought the spotlight for himself. Instead, he poured everything into the collective, making sure the Spinners' legacy endured, even as trends changed and audiences shifted. By the 2000s, as other members of the group passed away, Henry became known as the last surviving original Spinner. It was a heavy title, one that he carried with dignity. He continued performing into his 80s, touring tirelessly, even as his health began to decline. Fans admired his resilience, watching in awe as he refused to let age silence the music that had carried him his whole life. On February 7, 2024, Henry Fambro passed away at the age of 85, closing a remarkable chapter in American music history. His death was mourned not just by fans of the Spinners, but by anyone who had ever been touched by the golden age of soul. In 2023, only a year before his passing, the Spinners were finally inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, a recognition that Henry lived to see, a fitting tribute to a lifetime of dedication. Henry's story is one of endurance, humility, and love for music. He was not a man of headlines or controversy, but a man whose voice became the soundtrack to countless lives. Though he is gone every time a Spinner song plays on the radio, his spirit lives on, steady, soulful, and timeless. Louis Gossett Jr. Louis Gossett Jr. was born on May 27, 1936 in Brooklyn, New York, a place where dreams often collided with the harsh realities of race and poverty. As a young man, he had an undeniable gift for performance, making his Broadway debut at just 17 years old in Take a Giant Step, 1953. That debut earned him glowing reviews, but it was only the beginning of a career that would stretch across 7 decades. Gossett quickly became a pioneer, one of the first black actors to secure leading roles on both stage and screen at a time when Hollywood doors were barely open. His breakthrough came with the groundbreaking miniseries Roots, 1977, where he portrayed Fiddler, the wise mentor who helped Kunta Kinte navigate the horrors of slavery. The role earned him an Emmy Award, forever cementing his place in television history. But Gossett's most celebrated moment arrived in 1983, when he won the Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor for his commanding performance as Sergeant Emil Foley in An Officer and a Gentleman. He became the first black man ever to win in that category, a milestone that resonated not just in Hollywood, but across the black community. Gossett didn't stop there. With films like Enemy Mine, 1985, Iron Eagle, 1986, and The Punisher, 1989, he proved his versatility, moving from sci-fi to action to drama with ease. On television, he became a familiar face, embodying characters who carried both strength and humanity. His career tally included more than 200 film and TV roles, making him one of the most prolific actors of his generation. Yet behind the applause, Gossett's life was marked by quiet struggles. He often spoke about the racism he faced in Hollywood, times when his talent was overlooked simply because of the color of his skin. Instead of bitterness, he transformed those wounds into fuel, vowing to open doors for others. Later in life, he endured another battle, prostate cancer, which tested his body and spirit, but never diminished his hope. Even as he grew weaker, he continued to use his platform to advocate for justice, equality, and representation in the arts. On March 29, 2024, Louis Gossett Jr. passed away at his home in Santa Monica, California, at the age of 87. His death marked the end of a remarkable journey, but his legacy lives on in every black actor who dares to dream of the big screen. Gossett was more than just a performer. He was a fighter, a mentor, and a symbol of perseverance. His life reminds us that the path to greatness is often paved with sacrifice, but the reward is a legacy that can inspire generations. Louis Gossett Jr. left the world with more than films. He left it with a blueprint for resilience and dignity. And though the stage is quieter without him, the echoes of his voice and the power of his presence will never fade. O.J. Simpson. Orenthal. James O.J. Simpson was born on July 9, 1947, in San Francisco, California. From humble beginnings, he rose to become one of the greatest running backs in American football history. At USC University of Southern California, he won the Heisman Trophy in 1968, a crowning achievement that announced his arrival as a generational talent. Drafted by the Buffalo Bills in 1969, Simpson made history in 1973 by becoming the first player to rush over 2,000 yards in a single NFL season, earning him the league's Most Valuable Player award. Fans nicknamed him the Juice, and for a time he was an untouchable hero. After football, Simpson successfully transitioned to Hollywood, appearing in comedies like the Naked Gun series and dramatic roles that showcased his charisma. He also became a familiar face in commercials, particularly as a Hertz spokesman, sprinting through airports with the same speed that had dazzled stadiums. At this stage, O.J. embodied the American dream, talent, wealth, and celebrity status. But behind the fame, his life began to unravel. His marriage to Nicole Brown Simpson was marked by allegations of domestic abuse, painting a darker portrait of the public hero. On June 12, 1994, Nicole and her friend Ronald Goldman were brutally murdered outside her Los Angeles home. O.J. Simpson was charged with their deaths, leading to the infamous trial of the century. The televised proceedings divided the nation, exposing deep racial tensions in America. Though Simpson was acquitted in 1995, the cloud of suspicion never lifted. 2 years later, a civil court found him liable for wrongful death, ordering him to pay millions in damages. Simpson's troubles didn't end there. In 2008, he was convicted of armed robbery and kidnapping in Las Vegas after attempting to reclaim sports memorabilia he claimed was stolen. Sentenced to 33 years in prison, he served 9 before being released on parole in 2017. By then, his reputation was beyond repair. Once admired as a cultural icon, O.J. had become a cautionary tale of how fame, ego, and poor choices can destroy a legacy. In his final years, Simpson lived quietly in Nevada, occasionally posting on social media, but rarely granting interviews. In 2023, he was diagnosed with prostate cancer, a battle he fought privately. On April 10, 2024, O.J. Simpson died at the age of 76. His death reignited debates: was he a fallen sports hero, a criminal who evaded justice, or a man crushed by the weight of his own decisions? O.J. Simpson's life remains one of America's most polarizing stories. From record-breaking NFL star to Hollywood personality, and then to the center of one of the most infamous trials in history, his journey is both extraordinary and tragic. He leaves behind a legacy that forces us to confront uncomfortable truths about celebrity justice and the fragile line between triumph and downfall. Bill Cobbs. Wilbert Francisco Bill Cobbs was born on June 16, 1934 in Cleveland, Ohio. His path to Hollywood was anything but ordinary. Before stepping in front of the camera, Cobbs served in the U.S. Air Force and later worked a variety of jobs: radar technician, cab driver, even selling cars. He didn't seriously pursue acting until he was 36 years old, an age when most people have already given up on childhood dreams. But Cobbs was different. He began with small theater productions in Cleveland and gradually found his way to New York, where off-Broadway roles opened doors to film and television. His late start became part of his legend proof that passion has no expiration date. Cobbs built an extraordinary career with over 200 film and television credits across 4 decades. His calm presence and wise demeanor made him a natural fit for mentor, father, and guiding characters. Audiences remember him fondly as Whitney Houston's manager in The Bodyguard 1992, the security guard Reginald in Night at the Museum 2006, and roles in classics like Demolition Man 1993, The Color of Money 1986, and Oz the Great and Powerful 2013. Unlike many actors chasing the spotlight, Cobbs specialized in subtle performances that elevated every scene he was in. He wasn't the loudest voice, but he was often the one you remembered most. Despite the obstacles of being a black actor in an era where roles were scarce and stereotypes abundant, Cobbs carved out a reputation built on perseverance and dignity. He was rarely the headline star, yet his consistency and versatility earned him deep respect from colleagues and fans alike. Directors often praised his ability to bring gravitas and authenticity to even the smallest roles. For viewers, Cobbs represented familiarity and comfort, a face that felt like home. As the years went on, he never slowed down. Into his 70s and 80s, he continued acting, taking on film and TV roles that showcased his endurance and love for the craft. In interviews, he often spoke about patience, resilience, and the joy of storytelling, encouraging young actors to focus less on fame and more on purpose. On June 25, 2023, Bill Cobbs passed away peacefully at his home in Riverside, California at the age of 89. His death was attributed to natural causes. The news was met with an outpouring of tributes across Hollywood and social media. Fans and fellow actors alike remembered him as a true professional, gentle, kind, and endlessly inspiring. Bill Cobbs's story is not one of scandal or spectacle, but of quiet triumph. He showed the world that success can come later in life, that persistence pays off, and that one doesn't need to be the star of the show to leave an indelible mark on cinema. His legacy is measured not just in roles, but in the countless people he touched with his humility and grace. Ronaldo White. Ronaldo White, often known as Renol White, was born on February 26, 1946 in Newark, New Jersey, at a time when the fashion industry offered very little space for black men. White refused to let prejudice define his destiny. In the 1970s, when runways and magazines were dominated almost exclusively by white models, he emerged as a trailblazer. In 1979, he made history by becoming the first black male model to appear on the cover of GQ. That single moment was more than an image. It was a cultural shift. His presence challenged an industry rooted in exclusion, opening doors for countless black models who would follow in his footsteps. White's career took him to the heights of fashion. He collaborated with luxury brands such as Ralph Lauren and Calvin Klein, bringing elegant style and representation to global campaigns. His tall, frame-striking looks and natural confidence made him unforgettable. But more than his physical beauty, it was his courage that made him iconic. By simply existing in spaces where black men had long been excluded, White forced the industry to reckon with its own biases. He once said that being on that GQ cover wasn't just for him, it was for every young black man who had been told he didn't belong in the world of high fashion. Yet his life was not without challenges. Behind the glossy photo shoots and glamorous runways, White endured the silent struggles of systemic racism. He often had to prove himself twice over, fighting to maintain a career where opportunities were fragile and fleeting. There were times when he was overlooked for jobs because of his skin color, but he never allowed bitterness to consume him. Instead, he carried himself with grace, optimism, and quiet strength. Even outside the spotlight, White's influence endured. He became a mentor to younger models and an advocate for diversity in the fashion industry. Many who worked with him praised his professionalism and humility. Unlike some who chase fame, White cared more about leaving a legacy of possibility. His career was proof that representation matters not only for visibility, but for reshaping how society defines beauty, masculinity, and success. In his later years, White faced health struggles, but rarely spoke publicly about them. On June 27, 2024, he passed away at the age of 80. His death was mourned not just by the fashion world, but by anyone who recognized the significance of what he had accomplished. Tributes remembered him as a man of dignity, a pioneer who turned barriers into milestones. Ronaldo White's story reminds us that progress in representation is never accidental. It is the result of brave individuals who dare to stand where no one like them has stood before. Though he is gone, every black model walking today owes part of their path to the doors he kicked open in 1979. His legacy lives not just in magazines, but in the broader cultural shift he helped spark. Erica Ashe. Erica Ashe was born on September 19, 1977 in Florida, and from the start her path seemed destined for the spotlight. But unlike many who pursue fame from childhood, Erica's journey was winding and filled with surprising turns. Initially, she had dreams of becoming a doctor and even studied pre-med. However, during a trip to Japan, she was introduced to the world of modeling and entertainment. That experience awakened her love for performing, and when she returned to the United States, she decided to follow her true passion, acting and comedy. Her big break came when she joined the cast of MAD-TV in 2008. At a time when sketch comedy was dominated by larger-than-life personalities, Erica stood out with her razor-sharp wit, clever impressions, and undeniable charm. She became known for bringing a fresh energy to the show, proving that black women in comedy could be both hilarious and versatile. From there, she expanded her reach to television, playing memorable roles on Real Husbands of Hollywood alongside Kevin Hart and in the critically acclaimed series Survivor's Remorse. Her performances consistently blended humor with heart, making her a fan favorite. But Erica wasn't limited to just television. She also made her mark on film with appearances in Scary Movie 5 2013 and Uncle Drew 2018, showing her ability to bring laughter to the big screen as well. She lent her voice to animated projects, graced Broadway stages, and even pursued singing. A true multi-hyphenate, Erica Ashe was the kind of talent Hollywood always needs: fearless, funny, and refreshingly authentic. Yet behind the smiles and laughter, Erica faced her toughest battle. In the early 2020s, she was diagnosed with cancer, a devastating illness she chose to fight privately. Despite undergoing treatments, she continued to work, refusing to let the disease define her life or rob her of joy. Friends and colleagues often spoke of her courage, describing her as someone who lit up every room she entered, even while carrying the weight of illness in silence. On July 28, 2024, the world lost Erica Ashe at just 46 years old. Her death shocked Hollywood and her fans, many of whom had no idea she had been sick. Tributes poured in across social media, with fellow actors and comedians remembering her as not just a gifted performer, but also a kind, radiant soul who inspired everyone she met. Erica Ashe's story is one of resilience and brilliance. She showed that dreams can change direction, that success can be found in following your true calling, and that even in the face of devastating odds, one can fight with dignity and grace. Though her life was far too short, the joy she gave to audiences through comedy, acting, and music ensures her legacy will live on. For fans and colleagues alike, she will always be remembered as the bright star who left the stage too soon. Connie Chiume. Constance Connie Chiume was born on June 5, 1952 in Welcome Free State, South Africa, at a time when her country was deeply scarred by apartheid. Growing up in a society that often silenced black voices, Connie found her own power in storytelling. From an early age, she gravitated toward the stage, believing that acting could both entertain and awaken. This conviction shaped a career that would span more than 5 decades and leave her as one of the most beloved actresses in South Africa. Her professional journey began in theater before expanding to television and film. Connie quickly became a household name in South Africa, known for her commanding performances in popular TV dramas like Zone 14, Rhythm City, and Gomorrah. With every role, she displayed a rare ability to balance strength with vulnerability, giving voice to characters that reflected the struggles and triumphs of everyday South Africans. For fans, Connie wasn't just an actress, she was family, someone whose presence felt both familiar and powerful. Her international breakthrough came in 2018 when she was cast in Marvel's blockbuster Black Panther, playing the role of an elder in the mining tribe. Though her screen time was brief, her performance carried weight, symbolizing the cultural authenticity that made the film a global phenomenon. She later reprised the role in Black Panther: Wakanda Forever 2022, becoming a recognized face worldwide and a source of pride for South Africans who saw themselves represented in a major Hollywood production. Despite her international fame, Connie remained deeply rooted in South Africa. She mentored young actors, advocating for more opportunities in the local industry, and used her platform to highlight the importance of preserving African culture through film and television. Colleagues often described her as generous and nurturing, always lifting others while maintaining her own high standards of artistry. But behind her radiant smile, Connie faced her share of private struggles. In her later years, she dealt with health complications that she chose to keep quiet, never allowing illness to overshadow her dedication to work. Even as her body grew weaker, she continued to act, embodying her lifelong commitment to storytelling. On August 3, 2024, Connie Chiume passed away at the age of 72, leaving South Africa and the global film community in mourning. Her death was more than the loss of an actress. It was the loss of a cultural guardian. Tributes poured in from around the world, remembering her as both a pioneer and an inspiration. For South Africa, she represented the endurance of Black excellence in art. For Hollywood, she was a reminder of the richness African performers bring to global cinema. Connie Chiume's story is one of resilience, authenticity, and legacy. She lived her life with purpose, carrying the voices of her people to the world stage. Though she is gone, her spirit continues to inspire young African storytellers to dream boldly, stand proudly, and never be silenced. John Amos. John Amos was born on December 27, 1939 in Newark, New Jersey. Long before Hollywood knew his name, he was a man of many talents, an athlete, writer, and performer. He studied sociology at Colorado State University and briefly pursued a career in professional football, signing with the Kansas City Chiefs in the 1960s. But destiny soon shifted him toward acting, where his commanding presence and deep voice made him unforgettable. Amos first caught national attention on the Mary Tyler Moore Show in the early 1970s, where he played weatherman Gordie Howard. Yet his most iconic role came in 1974 with the CBS sitcom Good Times, where he portrayed James Evans Sr., the strong and no-nonsense father of a Black working-class family in Chicago. At a time when many TV shows depicted Black families through stereotypes or comedic tropes, Amos insisted on portraying James Evans as a man of discipline, integrity, and responsibility. His portrayal redefined television fatherhood for millions of viewers. But his dedication came at a cost. In 1976, after clashes with producers who wanted to soften his character into a comedic figure, Amos was abruptly written off the show. It was a painful setback both personally and professionally. Yet Amos refused to compromise his principles. He believed that representation mattered, that Black families deserved to see themselves portrayed with dignity rather than caricature. Just 1 year later, Amos returned to television in another groundbreaking role. In 1977, he played the older Kunta Kinte in Roots, the historic miniseries that exposed America to the brutal realities of slavery. His performance was raw, emotional, and unforgettable, cementing his status as one of the most respected actors of his generation. The role earned him an Emmy nomination and placed him firmly in television history. Beyond these defining roles, Amos built a diverse career in film and television. He starred in Coming to America 1988 as Cleo McDowell, the proud fast food restaurant owner, and returned for its sequel decades later. He appeared in action films like Die Hard 2 1990 and lent his talents to stage productions, showing the breadth of his artistry. With more than 5 decades in the industry, he proved that resilience and integrity could sustain a career even after setbacks. In his later years, Amos continued to act, but also became a mentor and advocate. He spoke often about the importance of opportunities for Black actors and remained a beloved figure at fan conventions and interviews. His life was not without personal struggles, declining health, financial pressures, and the challenges of aging in an industry that often forgets its pioneers. On August 21, 2023, John Amos passed away at the age of 83 from congestive heart failure. His death was felt deeply across television and film, a reminder that the man who once stood as the father of America's black family on Good Times had left an indelible mark. John Amos's legacy is one of courage, authenticity, and unwavering principle. He may have been written out of shows, but he was never erased from history. For generations of viewers, he remains the embodiment of dignity on screen and proof that sometimes the greatest victories come not from fame, but from standing firm in truth. James Earl Jones. James Earl Jones was born on January 17, 1931, in Arcaboutla, Mississippi. His childhood, however, was far from easy. After his father abandoned the family, young James was raised by his grandparents on a farm in Michigan. There he developed a severe stutter that left him nearly mute for several years. It wasn't until a caring teacher encouraged him to recite poetry aloud that he began to conquer his speech impediment. That victory not only gave him a voice, it gave the world one of the most iconic voices in history. Jones's career blossomed on the stage. In 1969, his performance in The Great White Hope as boxer Jack Jefferson earned him both a Tony Award and an Oscar nomination for the film adaptation in 1970. His commanding presence and booming baritone made him unforgettable. Over the years, he achieved the rare Triple Crown of acting, winning Tony, Emmy, and Grammy Awards, a feat few actors ever accomplish. But for most audiences, his legacy is tied to two immortal characters. In 1977, Jones gave his deep, thunderous voice to Darth Vader in Star Wars, instantly cementing the villain as one of cinema's most iconic figures. Then in 1994, he voiced Mufasa in Disney's The Lion King, guiding Simba with wisdom and tenderness. These roles ensured his voice would live on in global culture, recognized by generations of fans young and old. Yet his story wasn't just about stardom. Jones faced racism in Hollywood at every stage of his career, often being typecast or overlooked despite his immense talent. Off-screen, he endured profound personal loss, including the death of his beloved wife, Cecilia Hart, in 2016. In later years, he battled heart disease and chronic lung illnesses that gradually limited his ability to perform. Still, he remained active, appearing in films and lending his voice until the very end. On September 9, 2024, James Earl Jones passed away at the age of 93 in his New York home. His death marked the end of a remarkable life, but also highlighted the fragility of even the greatest legends. Tributes poured in from across the globe, with fellow actors, politicians, and fans celebrating not just his roles, but the humanity and perseverance he embodied. James Earl Jones's life is a story of triumph over silence. From a boy who could barely speak to a man whose voice shaped cinema, his journey remains one of the most inspiring in entertainment history. He showed the world that greatness can rise from struggle, that perseverance can overcome even the deepest wounds, and that a single voice, rich, commanding, unforgettable, can echo across generations forever. David Harris. David Harris was born on February 23, 1955, in New York City. Growing up in the heart of Harlem, during a period of cultural vibrancy and social upheaval, Harris found his voice through performance. Acting became both his refuge and his platform, allowing him to channel emotion, discipline, and resilience. After studying theater and sharpening his craft in local productions, Harris caught the attention of casting directors who were searching for raw talent with real grit. In 1979, Harris secured the role that would define his career, Cochise, in the cult classic, The Warriors. The film, directed by Walter Hill, followed rival gangs navigating the dangerous streets of New York City, and Harris's portrayal stood out for its mix of toughness and charisma. Cochise became more than a character. He was a symbol of street loyalty and youthful defiance. To this day, fans of The Warriors consider him one of the film's most beloved figures, immortalized in pop culture through endless references and conventions. While The Warriors cemented his place in Hollywood history, Harris's career stretched far beyond a single role. He appeared in television staples like NYPD Blue Law and Order and ER, where he showcased his ability to embody characters with authenticity and depth. Unlike many who fade after one iconic performance, Harris proved his versatility by thriving across genres from crime dramas to medical series. Colleagues praised his professionalism and humility, noting that he carried himself without ego, always focused on the craft rather than the fame. But like many actors of his era, Harris also faced challenges. The entertainment industry in the 1980s and 1990s often typecast black actors, offering limited roles that failed to reflect their true abilities. Harris persevered, navigating these barriers with patience and persistence. While he never became a household name on the level of some peers, he built a career defined by steady excellence and quiet resilience. In his later years, Harris fought a private battle with cancer. True to his character, he carried the burden, quietly, rarely speaking publicly about his illness. He continued working as long as he could, embodying dignity even in the face of decline. On October 25, 2024, David Harris passed away at the age of 75. His death left a void not just in Hollywood, but also in the hearts of fans who had grown up quoting his lines and admiring his presence on screen. David Harris's story is one of endurance, humility, and grace. He may not have chased fame or fortune, but he gave the world performances that will live on for generations. From the streets of New York and The Warriors to the courtrooms and hospitals of network television, his legacy is a reminder that true artistry is not about headlines, but about authenticity. Though gone, David Harris will forever be remembered as the warrior with a gentle soul. Nikki Giovanni. Yolande Cornelia. Nikki Giovanni Jr. was born on June 7, 1943 in Knoxville, Tennessee. Raised partly in Cincinnati, Ohio, Giovanni came of age during a period when America was burning with racial tension and demands for justice. From her earliest days, she had a sharp tongue and a fearless spirit. At Fisk University, she quickly made a name for herself as a young woman, unafraid to challenge authority, often clashing with administrators over student rights and civil liberties. That fire never dimmed. It became the essence of her life's work. In 1968, Giovanni released her first poetry collection, Black Feeling, Black Talk, which was more than literature, it was a manifesto. Her words gave voice to anger, resilience, and hope at a time when black communities across America were reeling from the assassinations of leaders like Martin Luther King Jr. and Malcolm X. She became one of the defining voices of the black arts movement, using poetry as both weapon and balm. Readers connected instantly with her ability to blend political urgency with personal emotion. Throughout the 1970s and 1980s, Giovanni published widely, from collections like Cotton Candy, On a Rainy Day, to children's books that made poetry accessible to younger generations. She appeared on television talk shows, spoke on college campuses, and became not only a poet, but also a cultural icon. Her sharp delivery, her willingness to confront racism and sexism head-on, and her refusal to dilute her voice made her stand out in a literary landscape often dominated by caution. Over her lifetime, Giovanni received numerous honors, including the Langston Hughes Medal and the NAACP Image Award, but she never allowed accolades to tame her rebel spirit. She often spoke of poetry not as an escape, but as a responsibility, a way to speak truths others wanted silenced. Her verses covered everything from love and motherhood to political struggle and black pride. Behind her powerful public persona, however, Giovanni carried her own burdens. The pressure of always being the voice of her generation weighed heavily on her. Health issues also emerged in her later years, but she remained determined to write, lecture, and inspire. Even when illness slowed her body, her pen never wavered. On December 9, 2024, Nikki Giovanni passed away at the age of 81. News of her death rippled through the literary world, sparking an outpouring of tributes from writers, activists, and admirers across generations. For many, it felt as though an era had ended, as if a guiding flame had been extinguished. Yet her words remain timeless, raw, and alive, continuing to empower those who read them. Nikki Giovanni's legacy is not measured by trophies or titles, but by the countless hearts and minds she set ablaze. She showed that poetry could challenge oppression, nurture community, and inspire courage. Though the rebel poet is gone, the fire she lit still burns, urging us all to keep speaking truth even when the world would rather we stay silent. As we reflect on these heartbreaking losses, one truth becomes clear. Greatness does not shield anyone from tragedy. These actors gave us unforgettable stories, voices and performances that shaped generations. Yet their lives remind us of the fragility of fame and the weight of human struggle. Their art lives on, but their absence leaves us questioning, how do we honor their legacy beyond the applause? Which of these legends touched your heart the deepest, and why? Share your thoughts in the comments, and let's keep their memory alive together here on Legends of Black Excellence.